In community organizing, there's this way of telling telling stories, of getting your point across, and it has three parts to it. It's called the story of self, the story of me, the story of us, the story of we, and the story of now, this moment. And as I was reading online, one of the writers who was talking said, John really does this pretty well. He tells the story of himself. This is who I am. I confess, I am not the Messiah. I love it. It's the most beautiful confession ever. I confess, I do not deny, I am not the Messiah. And then the story of us. John comes, and the story of us is the people who need forgiveness, who need to have the way made straight, and the story of now, because there's someone here you don't know. The one who has come to make straight the whole way of the world. So I thought I'd try this on in my own way and tell you kind of the story from my perspective. Growing up, I never fit into my family. It's black sheep's definitely the wrong phrase, not just because of the racial issues, but it's just the wrong phrase. I wasn't the oddball. I was just a whole different specimen than the rest of the group. I'm going home this year for the first time since I moved out here to go to my dad's side family Christmas. And I'm excited to go to my dad's side family Christmas and see relatives whom I have not seen in quite a long while. But the reality is, I never fit into my dad's side. I remember we had Christmas, and my two cousins, who were just half a year and a year older than me, they were best of friends, and I had no concept of anything they did. Like, how I lived and how they lived were totally different things. And me and my brother were worlds apart as well, and the result was, generally at Christmases, the only person I found that I could enjoy sitting with was great-grandma. I went and played with great-grandma the whole day because we were both left-handed. We were both the odd ducks out. And we would sit at the end of the table and we'd whisper to each other really loudly, "Oh, do you see what Sue's doing?" Making sure she could hear it. We were ornery. That was the only person in the whole family that I really got along with. The rest of them, I was just like, I'm nothing like the rest of the people here. I don't fit this picture. My mom's side of the family was no better. I was the only grandkid my grandfather ever spanked. Thank you very much. What an honor. I've actually lost that honor, and I now have a younger cousin who's in third grade now who also has the honor with me. So I got one person to share that history with. But otherwise, in that family too, everyone else was much better behaved than I was. Yeah, shocking. And growing up, it was always just a matter of trying to figure out where in this world a place fit for me that said that this was family. And family is really important to me, but part of the importance of family has always been the struggle of it being family. And when I got to college, I ended up in a fraternity of all things. And I ended up in the fraternity. Fraternities, are normally like these big family units. But I got there because I had nowhere else to live and I needed a place to live. And so I said, oh, look, these seem like good people. I'll go live there. And the whole year I was living there, they're like, he's a really good guy. We're going to make him part of our fraternity, part of our family. And I'm like, I'm just here to live. And they're like, we're going to make you a part of your family. I'm like, I'm just living here. You're great guys, but there's, it's just a stop on the way. And I remember when I went through their activation ceremonies, I became part of that family in a very real way that just surprised me. And I'll say more about that in a minute. Then I went to seminary, and boy, my first two roommates were horrendous. It wasn't family there. My next two roommates, decent. Not horribly bad guys, but I'll tell you, I came in the house and the one guy looked at me, he said, "Stay away, I'm under quarantine." I said, "Okay, we're done." He had gotten TB while in South America, And it was during the elections when Obama was being elected president for the first time. And so he was in Chicago, and Chicago was going crazy that we have someone with TB in the like, they had someone come by every day to watch him take his pills. He's like, I'm in quarantine. I'm like, okay, we're done. My next people I lived with, they were okay too. And then I moved out here, and it's still been, for me on some levels, a search for family, Part of the reality is, since the time at least of third grade, since third grade, I know I've had that desire to have children. You guys see me around kids. I love kids. And when things started happening in my life where I had it come out, that whole dream had to change. Because the dream of having children was always the dream of having my own children, That's everyone's dream, isn't it? My own children. That's how we're raised, to have our own children. And that's probably not the dream reality for me anymore, no matter what happens coming next. It'll be something different than that. And that whole thing had to change. But I tell you what, within my story, the one place where I always knew I could find family was in the church. When I was growing up, let me tell you, family in the church was wonderful. You know why? Because the moment we got to church, my family stopped arguing. It was so great. We would argue and argue and argue and argue, and that van door opened, and we were at church, and we were the perfect family. We were absolutely wonderful, and we were wonderful the whole Sunday at church. And my parents enjoyed being wonderful at church so much that they'd stay an extra hour after church to talk to people, because let's stay in that wonderful state. And they stayed so long after church, but church was family, that I could go across the street with family members, not actual family members, but church family members, and I'd go across the street and have lunch with them while my parents talked for an hour. And when I got into high school, we got a new pastor, and I found myself over at his house with his family at least twice a week. The church was family. And when I got to college, the first thing I did was I found a church home and found University Lutheran Church. I happened to have already known the pastor, enjoyed him, and got there, and those people were so much family that they became, A, some of my primary friends, and B, that one of them became my own goddaughter. But that was family. And I said my fraternity became family. The moment my fraternity became family for me, we were going through our activation rituals, and part of our activation rituals, because we're a Lutheran fraternity, is the night right before we do the activation ceremonies, we go down to the church and we have communion together. And that was when all of a sudden all these brothers actually became brothers. And as I've moved out here, isn't this family? The beautiful thing about Trinity is we really do welcome people really well. And we say, you are here and you are family when you're here. And I know there are some times where we seem to overlook some people here and there, and it's hard for me up front, because I'm like, okay, someone nudge in that direction and go say, you're here, you're present, you're family. That's all that matters. You are family right now. We're going to welcome you. Don't feel like you're off on your own by yourself, because you are family. And lots of people have said over the years, family, I don't like the metaphor of family for the church, because families are messed up. I don't want another messed up group of people in my life. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but the church is family, and part of the reality of family is we're going to be messed up once in a while. We're not going to all get along perfectly. We're not all going to fit in the same boxes either. I have my family in Iowa, and I don't fit in anyone else's box in Iowa, let me tell you. But they are still family. And this is family, the people whom we come together with and enjoy. One of the primary ways we make family, Lutherans are known for this, is we eat together. Come on. When you are having things and the people who are your family, the way you define them is the people who I invite over for a meal. That's family, isn't it? It's the people that I sit at lunch with during the day at school. That's family. It's the people who, when we have a holiday, they're coming over and we're having food. That's family, isn't it? Family are the ones I want to share a meal with. When Christ was born into this world, he was born into a very strange family. He was born to an unwed mother, at least at the time that he was conceived, an unwed teenage mother, and a guy who was not his own father, but claimed him anyway. And at that time and day and age, that was very unusual. He was born into a family that included shepherds that he had never met before that night, and people from foreign countries who wanted to come and say, we want to be part of your family too. And do you know the way that Jesus was most known for making family? I've already said it. Eating. Let me tell you, he ate with everyone. He ate with the Pharisees. He ate with the tax collectors. He ate with the sinners. He turned water into wine and ate at the wedding feast. He had 5,000 people on the hill and he says, I'm hungry, let's get some food and eat. He enjoyed eating. He said, Zacchaeus, you are part of my family today. I'm coming to your house, let's eat. He came and he ate with people. And people said, well, who is your family? And he said, look, the people who are sitting here, this is my family. The ones who are doing the will of God, who are sharing the meal together. And we were talking this morning at our Bible study about communion, and one of the weird things about communion is this is the most communion. It means to come together, right? To be in unity, communion, to come with each other. This is the most divisive thing in the church today. This is the most divisive thing in the Christian church. That when we actually are in agreement with another church, we call ourselves full communion partners because we can finally eat at each other's table together. And all the churches, all the denominations in which we're not in agreement with, we're not full communion partners. And we divide over every little nitpicky thing at this meal about who can come here, about how is Jesus present, about do we use flat bread or leavened bread? Every little nitpicky thing about this meal we divide over. And Luther, in his day and age, there was another guy named Zwingli. Zwingli is one of the first people that became the Baptist church. And Luther and Zwingli, they sat down together and they said, we got to work out our differences, okay? The king actually said, Luther and Zwingli, you got to work out your differences. They sat down together and they said, okay, we agree on this. We agree on this. We agree on this. They went through 11 points we agree on. Point number 12, is Jesus present at communion? We don't agree. We're done. They parted ways over that one thing because who we sit down with and eat with is family. And the way Jesus lived, he said, come and eat. Take this. This is my body. I give it to you because you are my family. Take this. This cup is my new promise, shed for you and for all people for the forgiveness of sin, because you are my family. And when John came, his dad sang the song. He said, you, John, are here to give knowledge of salvation to God's people by the forgiveness of their sins. Because you know what the hardest part about being family is? It's getting along. And John came to prepare the way for Christ to make family by saying, you who don't get along or don't fit in, you're forgiven. You who've messed up and been kicked out, you're forgiven. You who can find no good way to actually please these people around you that are supposed to be your family, you're forgiven. You who keeps messing up and not doing what you're supposed to, you're forgiven. Because you are the ones who God is going to make into his family. We come together this Christmas to celebrate being family of God. We come together this Christmas to witness the birth of our very first brother, God's only Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.